Content warnings for this episode include dysphoria, transphobia, mental health, ableism, religion, bullying, racism, and being misgendered. Welcome to GenderMeowster Podcast Network. Genderful is a talk show featuring non-binary and trans folks discussing various topics and special interests. We kindly remind our listeners that no person is a monolith of identities. All opinions are the speaker's own. This show airs live on Twitch at twitch.tv/GenderMeowster, and VODs with show notes can also be found on YouTube. So hi everyone, I'm GenderMeowster. I use they, them pronouns, and I will let my illustrious guest introduce themselves. Hello, welcome to the stream.
Hello, I am Atlas of Phoenix. Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, Atlas, I'm doing excited hand clapping.
I noticed. It's wonderful and endearing.
Your outfit is so good. Can you, so for those who are listening later and don't get to see the gloriousness that is your outfit, could you describe it and maybe explain some of your design choices you've got going on here?
It's great. I actually have wings on. I don't know if you can see them.
They're very
there
orange.
You go. I started with the wings last year because I had a booth at Pride and decided, okay, I'm going to dress up as a phoenix. So I had a little tiny flame crown, and then I had this eyeglass, like it was shades, but they were like orange and kind of like faded in so you could see my face, because I didn't want to wear a mask because I didn't think I was asking for donations. I felt weird about asking for donations with a mask. Mm-hmm. And so I got the glasses. I looked like a queer Power Ranger. And so I decided to upgrade it to something a little more that was like carnival and drag queen at the same time.
Absolutely.
And then added the disco ball about 45 minutes ago.
Yeah. Why'd you pick the disco ball?
The disco ball.
I love it. It's like a third eye or something. It's so good.
It is a third eye. That's a perfect segue. It's because when we are at a disco, we're at a club and we see the disco ball, it like reflects light on everybody, off the walls, off the people. And I just wanted to have this because I want my light to reflect off of everyone else so their light can reflect back at me. And this is how we're connected.
Yeah.
We're pure entropy, and our energy just pours into each other, and energy never dies.
Oh my gosh. You're such a philosopher. I love you so much already. This is so fun.
I love you too, Gender. Let's just give it to each other.
So good. I love all of this. Okay, so there's two questions that I typically ask my guests, and given that our topic is sort of post-identity something,
right.
Maybe you don't want to answer them, so I'll ask them, and then you can decide if you want to answer them or not, and I will just be humble and listen to your answer.
Okay, perfect.
How about that?
That works for me. Yeah.
So the first question I like to ask my guests are, what are the things that you can trace back to your youth that indicated you might be trans one day?
Oh, there's a scene. It's Saturday morning, and I have my catcher's mitt in white t-shirt and shorts and a baseball cap, and my dad is getting ready to take me to Little League practice. And my mother, it looks like there's a wake happening in the living room. My mother wanted someone who did ballerina and did all the girly things. And she was so depressed. She was like withdrawn in herself. And I went back to think about, like, when did you know that you were trans? I think it was that moment where I had no interest energetically or spiritually to embody the ballerina that she wanted as a girl, like maybe as a guy, but not as a girl. Mm-hmm. She wanted a girly girl, and I was a boy. And I think that's probably when I kind of noticed it, that there was nothing I could do at that point anymore to make her happy.
Mm. Wow, that's really powerful. Like, to be able to pinpoint that moment. What a great scene too. I can tell you're a filmmaker.
Not just a little bit, just a little bit. Nothing extravagant, nothing award-winning or anything like that. Just a little
bit. Nothing award-winning yet.
Nothing award-winning yet.
You watch, in 10 years, people will listen to this and be like, wow, Atlas hadn't won any awards yet. How fascinating.
Actually, I got some awards for a short film I did 4 years ago.
There you go. You already do have awards.
Yes.
You did it.
I snuck one in there.
There you go. I love it. So how has your relationship to gender evolved over time? Like, how did you go from kid with a baseball mitt to fabulous Phoenix person that you are today?
Um, Thanks for laying that up like that. I appreciate it. I was watching something. I was going through Netflix to see what I wanted to see one time. I think it was 2006.
Mm-hmm.
And this wonderful documentary came out about a trans sex worker who was doing adult films. And I wanted to watch it because I was like, oh, what is this? This is interesting. And I typically like watching lifestyles that I don't know much about. And for instance, adult film stars, because the way that we look at sex is kind of poisonous sometimes. And so these people, these actors, are treated poorly by our
Mm-hmm.
society. And all they're doing is sex work, and all they're doing, which is legitimate, honest work. And what they're doing is doing something that a lot of people can't even do with their partner, which is allow themselves to feel the power of an orgasm and to feel the power of being close to someone intimately like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to watch it just to learn more about this particular adult star. And this adult star's name is Buck Angel.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I saw this person, I saw this powerful documentary. I remember he was talking about like his surgeries. He was talking about his lifestyle, and I was like, "You can do that?" I was like, "Wait a minute! You can change genders." And I found my calling as a human spirit. I found my calling, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a couple of days later. I used to work at a cat place that was around the corner from where I lived. And so I was walking down the street. And as I was waiting for the light to change before I crossed the street to go to work, I thought, when I'm 50, I'll probably change my gender. I will have
Mm-hmm.
lived half my life as a woman. I might as well live the other half of my life as a man to see what that's like.
Mm-hmm.
And then at 50, I decided on my birthday at 50, if you did transition, what would your name be? And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, Atlas? Let's look up Atlas because it just came to me. And
Mm-hmm.
Atlas was a mythical god, Greek god, Titan god. And Atlas started a war with Zeus.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, he lost. And Zeus was like, okay, if you're going to come up at me like this, I know that you have the strength and the endurance because you came at me. So, as your punishment, because you have the strength and the power and the endurance, you're going to hold up the heavens for the rest of eternity.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked Atlas for that because I have a lot of endurance for all the things I've been through in my life in 50 years. And Ogun is also another mythical warrior, African mythical warrior. And Ogun is a keeper of covenants. A keeper of covenants and a warrior, a rum maker, a blacksmith, and peacekeeper.
Mm-hmm.
And he retreated to the woods, to the forest, and wasn't going to come back to society, to civilization, until this beautiful African goddess Orisha danced to him and danced him back into civilization. And Phoenix, I am a Scorpio, and I have 7 symbols that represent me. And the first symbol is a spider. The second to the last symbol is a bald eagle. And the very last symbol is a phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
And Scorpios deal with rebirth, death, creation, and destruction. Basically, we burn things down to the ground to grow them back up again. And that's kind of what I experienced in 2020. I lost my dear best friend. I lost the relationship with them. And I did a lot of work with dialectical behavioral therapy that year. I got enrolled into that program. And I felt like 2020 of all years, this is the year you've really risen from your ashes. There's an election. I live in Minneapolis where George Floyd was brutally murdered, and this pandemic, which is making everybody freak out and taking unnecessary chances with their health. And so I said, your last name is going to be Phoenix. And then like an hour later, I was on my acupuncturist table when I realized what my last name should be. And when I came home, I came out to 35 close friends over 3 weeks. And people burst into tears. They were so happy. I made everyone like either call me or video chat with me. And I think there was one or two people that I just ended up text messaging. And on April 21st, I claimed that as my tea birthday. And the reason why is because Prince Rogers Nelson, known as Prince, died on April 21st of 2016. And his album 1999 was the first full album I ever had at the age of 13 in 1983. And it changed my life. I took down all of my Michael Jackson posters and pictures, and I put up a singular poster of Prince, and I felt at home. I felt at home in my own skin. And incidentally, this wonderful person that I'm no longer friends with, I met them 2 years after Prince died, and we became friends very shortly after. And they also changed my life by just being themselves and teaching me to be myself. And it was really just beautiful. And so I chose that day because I wanted to honor two people that have really done a lot for me to instill in me that I am an individual that relies on other individuals, but it's my individual job as an artist to be who I am, to my act of service and my risk as an artist is to just be myself.
Yeah.
And that's it, whether people like it or they don't like it. Matter of fact, it doesn't matter whether you like my art or don't like my art. I made you feel something one way or the other. And so that is important. But the most important part of my art is simply doing it. And when I do it, I move on to the next project, and that's it. It no longer belongs to me once I release it to the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I've run into that before with other creative creator people that I've spoken with. Like we were talking about a tabletop system that someone had created, and they're already working on their next project and thinking about that. And it's to them, it's old news. It's like, oh, I did that a year or two ago. Now I'm on the next thing, and it's like, wow, like it's so interesting how people catch up. Like people have reached out to me and said they listened to the first episode of this podcast and now they're thinking about starting HRT, and I'm like looking at my watch like that was 50, 55, 56 episodes ago. Like
right.
That was a year ago. I'm doing other stuff now. It's exciting.
Right. It's good to just put it out there whenever somebody comes across it, however they feel about it, whatever it does for them, and they take themselves on their own trajectory with the information that they have. That's beautiful. That's what I'm saying. Like we're energy pouring into each other, you know?
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It's so powerful to have stuff that I worked on a year or more ago still be positively impacting people today.
That's wonderful. Congratulations.
I imagine that's what it's like making films too. Like, you know, people seeing it later on, the work that you've done, being like, wow, this is so fascinating. Like, oh, this is so cool. I love that.
It's been an interesting process. Between Little Men, which I made in 2018, in 2019, I released it, and I actually rented out a old theater, a very kind of like retro theater that was made in, I think, 1957. And so I rented it out and I had my premiere there, and almost 200 people showed up. And I think I knew maybe 10 or 20 people, and my producers knew about 6 people. So it was just a bunch of people that came. And what I did every morning for a month prior to the premiere is I cut a new trailer, whether it was 5 seconds long or 30 seconds long. I cut a new trailer every morning. And so you got a new trailer by 10 o'clock in the morning. And I had the premiere, and then I submitted it to film festivals, and it toured all over the world in 2020. 2020. And I made a film at the end of 2020 that was supposed to be a performance on stage, but because of the pandemic, I ended up recording it on video, and I decided I wanted to do something different and artistic. So I just used my cell phone and shot it with the filter of black and white, and just shot my monologue. And that also got into film festivals, and that's been doing well. And now I just accidentally did it again, where I was supposed to perform something last week, but I got COVID, and the producers of the cabaret asked me if I could just film it. And I was like, oh, I'm not just going to film it. I'm going to make it. So yes. And so I used footage from my documentary, Beautiful Boy, and I put it along with me just reading the monologue. And so I'm narrating this beautiful film that, was received with so much love over the weekend. I asked how the cabaret went, and a friend of mine actually called me to tell me how she felt about it, and that it was deeply moving, and that, like I'm naked, like I exposed my what I used to have were breasts, and now I had top surgery several months ago. And so I'm just in the woods hugging a tree without a shirt, or sitting next to a tree, or I'm making coffee, or I'm cutting things up. And the piece is called Ordinary, and it's just about how I'm just an ordinary human being, but because of bigotry, people put all these labels on me and expect me to behave a certain way. For instance, when I've had in my lifetime where I've had Caucasian people say, "You're so well-spoken," or you're so articulate. And my response is, that's a really awkward thing to say to me. And it's just like, what does that even mean? And I took English class for 12 years, just like you did. How else was I supposed to sound? And so I talk about that. I talk about transphobia, fat phobia. I talk about homophobia. And I talk about how people are prejudiced against the amount of melanin in your skin, which I've given a new name and decided to come up with a proper definition for what racism actually is, which we can talk about whenever you're ready.
Let's do it. What is your definition of racism? Let's hear it.
Well, I wrote it down, so I'm actually going to read it so I don't flub this one. There's only one race, the human race, and we are all human beings. Melanin is a complicated chemical process called melagenesis, which creates the pigmentation of our skin. And it's made to protect us from UV radiation. And so what people have been referring to as racism is a colonial concept. What they're actually referring to is something that I am now calling, which is melanophobia, the unreasonable prejudice against another human being's melanin, which is out of our control and based on the sun exposure our ancestral population had. Melanophobia is one of the pieces of something called bigotry, and bigotry is defined as an unreasonable prejudice against one or more members based on their membership of a particular group. There are many types of bigotry, like transphobia and homophobia, fatphobia, and now melanophobia, and other countless others. And so the authentic definition of racism to me is one or more members of the human race against other members of the human race and their humanity. To me, that is what racism is.
It's a really powerful definition. Thank you for
it holds everyone
that.
accountable.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. It holds everyone accountable.
I love the nuance to it. Well, there's so many threads we could pick up here. We could talk more about filmmaking. We could talk more about human being human and identity. Do you have a preference which direction we lean towards first? We'll get to both eventually.
No, I'm prepared. Just give me everything you got.
Awesome. Okay, let's go philosophical. Let's do it. What is identity? Since you shared with us what racism is, what is identity?
Identity is anything you want to call yourself. It's not what other people call you. That's why it's powerful to be transgender, because you get to identify yourself from the ground up and give birth to yourself from the ground up the moment you decide to transition. And you don't need HRT and you don't need surgeries to transition. You just need your spirit to align with your heart and your mind, and just do it. Just cut the cords of society and colonialism and patriarchy and just be yourself. That's your act of service.
So what are your identities that you hold, since identity is something you claim for yourself and not something that someone else can assign to you? Can you talk more about that?
My identity is just being a human being. Like the other identities, they fluctuate or they don't really identify me, because I'm more than like what people want to call me or what I'm filling out in demographic sheets to get a grant or to apply for housing or whatever. It's like, these are nice, but at the end of the day, I calm down and get ready for bed and go to sleep. And at the beginning of the day, I wake up and start my day. So, that's what every human being does if they're able. Some people can't sleep.
Yeah.
So there's that too.
Yeah. Yes. Um, can you tell us more about why identifying as a human being is so important to you?
Because that's what I am. That's what we all are.
Yeah.
And if we could take off the blinders of, the blinders that are perpetrated by bigotry
Hmm.
and perpetrated ultimately by racism, an attack on one human being's attack on another human being,
Hmm.
you know, then we can actually see each other for the beautiful human beings and the beautiful spirits we actually are, because we're a spirit that's contained in this human vessel to
Hmm.
experience things through a trajectory of past lives and future lives. And we're just supposed to learn everything we can and carry that with us back out into the big place out there called the universe.
Yeah. So, so with the identity of human being, are there? How do you feel about cultural holidays? So, like Juneteenth was yesterday. You've got Pride coming up. You mentioned you're tabling at Pride.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about these different events? Do you attend or not attend them, depending on history, or that doesn't matter at all? What's your perspective on that?
I attended. Today is officially Juneteenth, so people got the day off today.
Mm-hmm.
And that's today was the day that I came up with the definition concretely of racism.
Nice.
And if I'm being frank, because we talked about being witchy earlier, and I feel like that definition isn't just coming from my mind; it's literally
Mm-hmm.
coming from my ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
My ancestors, when they were working the fields of cotton, they sang spirituals asking God for freedom,
Mm-hmm.
but they knew they were never going to experience freedom in their lifetime, but they knew I would. And so I am my ancestors' wildest dreams, and there's no reason for me not to celebrate Juneteenth.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no reason for me not to celebrate Pride, because my ancestors were also queer and trans, so to go to these events, it's just me connecting with my ancestors and connecting with my community of people, and dealing with their ancestral lineage as well. And we all come together and to do this one thing that is the benevolent primordial God of all gods, which is we come together to love.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Love is
Yeah.
the primordial benevolent God that sees us all,
Yeah.
and we all have the capacity to do this. We just do it. See
Yeah.
what happens.
Yeah.
Tell that person you have a crush on them. Get that raise. You deserve it. Here's the deal. You're never going to get paid your worth. So you might as well ask for what you can right now and be happy with it. Also, be happy with what you got if you don't get that raise, because you can do something else that will get you what you need. Ultimately, you were your best guide. Your inner self is your best guide.
Mm-hmm.
And all you have to do is just love that voice in your head that tells you, I'm going to try this and see what happens, instead of saying, I don't know, they're really cute and they probably don't think of me and they probably don't notice me. And it's like, they probably do if you just ask them. You're not invisible. You can't do anything with your hairstyle to make you invisible. Like, you can't cover your face enough. People see you.
I love that. Um, okay, so the last question I have in this category is, are mental health disorders considered identity? We also talked very briefly before a stream about this phrase neurospicy
Oh,
or
yes.
neuro. There's also neuro wonderful. I don't know if you've heard that one.
Oh, I love
Um,
Neuro Wonderful. I
yeah.
am Neuro Spicy and Neuro Wonderful, and I'm proud of it. This month is all about Pride. Juneteenth, Pride. Yes. I love it because, like when I think about mental health disorders, I mean, that's what we are as human beings. We have mental health, and some more acutely than others, and a variety of different kinds of diagnoses that define how we think about things. And I recently wrote a post yesterday where I talked about how I almost never remember Mother's Day or Father's Day. And then I broke down, my parents, they missed out on a really good person themselves. And they weren't able to have access to the mental health help that I had access to, where
Mm,
I'm doing the work to heal my ancestral trauma and to heal myself. which are synonymous, and they didn't have that opportunity because, dialectical behavioral therapy was developed by Marsha Linehan in 1987. I was 17 when she made that. And if I had had access to that when I was 17, who knows what I would be like now. And dialectical behavioral therapy really saved my life. It's a year-long program, and you have a book, you have homework, and you have group therapy for 2.5 hours a week on top of your hour-long therapy. So it's 250 hours for the whole year of therapy. And it completely changed my life. Like, I couldn't wear this 2.5 years ago. I would be too scared to do it. But like today, it's like, well, this is what I'm supposed to be wearing. What are you supposed to be wearing? This
Space
I don't even
cats.
question it. The space cats, exactly. So we're both wearing what we're supposed to be wearing, being the beautiful human beings that we are. And so, yeah, I relate to my mental health because, like, recently I just found out that I have ADHD. And gosh, that helped me so much because I could stop beating myself up for things I do naturally because of my mental health. And so I can't help it. It was something I was born with, like bipolar disorder. I developed complex post-traumatic stress disorder, but honestly, with my DNA going all the way back to just part of the way back to slavery, and then going all the way back to the very beginning of my lineage, there's an awful lot of generational trauma in my DNA. And so that is real. Like, mental health is absolutely real. That's an absolute. It's an absolute identity.
Yeah. Well, and I'm curious about, is neurotype considered mental health, or is it just like a category? Like, because health indicates something can get better or worse, right? Like failing health is like the worst thing that could happen. No amount of money can fix failing health.
Right.
Unless there's medicine that can be accessed, and capitalism is in the way, in which case, heck, capitalism, and give people the medicine. Gosh darn it.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Definitely.
But also, like, billionaires die because their hearts fail. Like,
right.
No amount of money can save you from your health changing. But like,
well, I have a quote for this, actually. I don't want to interrupt you, but Bob Marley, when his last words were, "Money can't buy life." And David Cassidy, who was part of the television show The Partridge Family, his last words were, "So much time wasted." So, yeah, money can't buy life.
Money can't buy life.
No.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious about neurotype not being in the health category and just being in the like options category, like how melanin content is an option, or like sexual attraction or romantic attraction or gender identity are options. Like, just like being trans isn't a health threat. I wonder if being somewhere on the neurodivergent scale that isn't neurotypical, isn't a threat. It just is. It's just a different way of being that isn't wrong or bad.
I mean, I agree with that. It is, being neurodivergent for me isn't wrong or bad. It's what I am. It's how my mental, as we say mental health, but that's how I am mentally. It's how I am emotionally, and that's how I am logically. And my wise mind still has neurodivergence to it, but it's a balance of like the logic mind and the emotion mind, which is what they teach you in dialectical behavioral therapy.
That's awesome. I also just thought of Vulcans for some reason. We've been watching a lot of Star Trek lately.
Oh, who were you thinking about again?
Vulcans.
Vulcan? I mean, it kind of looked like one.
You're the most fabulous Vulcan I've ever seen.
Is it this? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I watched the original Star Trek. That's how old I am. I think I watched a little bit of the new one. But I heard that it's really good. And I actually, now that, sci-fi, it took me a while to get onto sci-fi. So I feel like I need to get some DVDs and catch up on Star Trek.
Yeah. I've really enjoyed Discovery. It's awesome.
Discovery, is that a channel?
Star Trek Discovery is one of the newer
See?
Star Trek shows.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm so bad at that. Is that the one Tarantino directed, or is that the television show?
It's a TV show. I don't know if it's
Gotcha.
something Tarantino has anything to do with, but there's a lot of diversity. Like I have not seen someone with they them pronouns on a like a TV show that's sent out in that way where everyone
Wow.
has access to it or whatever. And there's like the captain is a black woman with braids. Like her hair is like not watered down for white people at all. It's like amazing.
Whoa.
I love it.
Okay. I have
And
to
there's
watch
gay
this.
men in love and there's like lesbians and it's so great.
It's the universe we're supposed to be living today.
I know.
Yes. Okay. I'm on board.
It's great.
I do know that Tarantino was in talks to do Star Trek, to do a Star Trek movie.
Oh. Yeah,
So,
I missed all of that news. I'll have to go Google that.
yes. Go Google that. Fact check me.
So fun. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm smiling so much my cheeks are hurting, but it's a good pain.
It's a good pain. I know a little something about that.
Atlas, why do you make films? What inspired you to start making films? Tell us more about that.
Oh, this story. I have to figure out how it started. I don't really know how it started. I came home from school one day, like I always do, and I had chores to do, but I was kind of bored, and so I was like, I'll do the chores later. And so I was kind of just, only child, and I picked up this telephone book. We used to have telephone books back in the day, and I had the white pages, and I opened it up, and there was at the very beginning, there was a list of government offices and the colleges that were nearby and graphics, like little graphs of the stadiums, like Wright State Stadium. And so I said, oh my God, you're so bored. What are you doing? You're reading a telephone book. Go take a nap or something. Go do something useful. And so I put the telephone book away and I go take my nap. And during my dream, I'm looking through a telephone book and I see the name of this college. Eventually I woke up and I was like, wow, oh, you're just in love with Prince. That's it. You're just in love with Prince. We're going to go to school tomorrow. We're going to look it up and see if it really exists. I get to school the next day and there's this gigantic book of all the colleges listed in the country. I'm like, I'm totally not going to find this college. So I open it up. I'm getting nervous. I'm getting nervous because I'm getting close to MI. And so I get it. And Minneapolis College of Art and Design is listed in this book, like it was listed in my dream, in the telephone book I was looking at. And I looked at the degrees they offered, and they offered film and video. And I said, that's it. I'm going to Minneapolis College of Art and Design, and I'm going to major in film and video, and I am going to become a filmmaker. And very shortly after that, before or after that, Spike Lee, I went to go see a film, and the trailer before that film was a black and white trailer of this skinny guy with big glasses and a bike hat that said Brooklyn across it. And he had a 6-pack of tube socks. And he was trying to sell the tube socks to raise money for his film. She's Got to Have It. And I was like, what? I can make films? He's black like me and I can make films? Because I'd been watching like Alfred Hitchcock and he was always in his films. And that was a filmmaker that I knew. But when I saw Spike Lee for the first time, I was like, oh, I can make films too. Anybody can make films. And so that was the other thing. And I did eventually come here and go to Minneapolis College of Art and Design. And I flunked out because I didn't have the money to pay for my projects. And so my grades were terrible. Mm-hmm. And 31 years later, I'm an award-winning filmmaker who just accidentally made another film last week. And I'm working on an experimental documentary film called Beautiful Boy, which is about my transition and my mental health journey of 40 plus years. Mm-hmm. And so I'm still pursuing it. And it's been great. And I'm grant funded by different grants in Minnesota. I also got an honorarium from Sundance last year. I submitted my project to their Uprise grant, and I wasn't able to get the grant, but they gave me $500 and they're tracking my project now. So that's good.
That's so bad.
And that's kind of it, really. I'm just doing my thing, just steady doing it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And I
Can
feel
you?
like, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask more about Beautiful Boy, but you can finish your thought first.
That's a good segue, actually, because I feel like that with film, it's the most powerful artistic medium that you can give people. Even if you can't see or you can't hear, you can still get the audio description. You can still read closed caption and see the images.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like it's one of the most powerful tools of communication. So powerful that um, Adolf Hitler hired a prominent Jewish filmmaker that was in a concentration camp to make a propaganda video. And there's actually a film about this filmmaker. And he made the propaganda video to show the world that Jews, which are part of my lineage, my grandmother was a white Jew, German Jew, who was killed in the war. And he wanted to present that everyone was being treated humanely in concentration camps. That's how powerful that is. And people believed it until they couldn't anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
so with Beautiful Boy, I'm just telling the story about myself as a person who is transitioning and transitioning not just gender, but even my emotional landscape is transitioning from where it was 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
31 years ago when I first came here. So I'm talking about that and my mental health journey. And I'm talking about like how my body has changed, not just because of the surgery. I had top surgery a little while ago, but like when I started my mental health journey, like I restarted it in 2007 when I was declared disabled, mentally like disabled and mentally disabled. So I had to go on disability. And so I was over medicated for the first 5 years and I needed to lose weight because I gained something like, I feel like 35 or 75. I gained an awful lot of weight in like 2 months.
Mm.
And so, and I held that weight for about 5 or 6 years, maybe something like that, until I was able to like sit down with a nutritionist and figure out what was going on and how I could eat differently. And then I suddenly realized that I must have had eating disorders up until I think 2020 is when I caught it because I would like not eat for a while because of my income. And then I eat and then eat a lot and then go for the periods where I wasn't eating a lot again. And in 2020, I got more of an allotment for food stamps. So I was able to go and buy quality food that lasted throughout the month versus, having only $30 for food stamps and then having to supplement that with money that I really didn't have. So it was like every week I would buy like the first week I'd buy $30. The second week I'd buy $60 because I have an additional 30 from the state. And then the other 2 weeks I would buy $30 worth of food. And there would always be a week and a half where I didn't have any money. So I'd like have to like ration food for the week. And that developed a kind of eating disorder that I didn't really catch until 2020 when I started eating better. And then in 2020, I lost 40 pounds in 2020 and kept most of it off. And it's been, I did it effortlessly almost. I mean, the depression of losing my relationship with my friend, I think that triggered it as well. But I was also starting to think differently because I was doing DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy. And so I was able to learn to love myself and to take care of myself better. And that's the journey that I've been on ever since that moment when I realized it. And it's been a great journey of self-love and self-compassion. And like I said, finding out about ADHD has been helpful as well. But that's kind of what the film is about. It's shot in black and white on purpose. And I'm using cell phone footage. I have an action camera that I just bought. And I'm also using a Sony A6400 mirrorless camera. And I have equipment because I was given a grant by the Minnesota Transgender Health Coalition to purchase the equipment that I needed. And that I also was able to purchase a little more equipment with different grants that I've gotten since then. And so yeah, that's kind of what the film is about. I have a website, there's a trailer that's on it. And part of the footage that I shot for my cabaret piece last week, Ordinary, uses footage from Beautiful Boy. And that's kind of it, I guess. Like, I'm excited to give it to the world in a couple of years. I'm waiting to finish bottom surgery and get some reflection of that and then put it all together, edit everything together and submit it to Sundance first to see if they'll take it. And then after that, put it on different film festivals. But ultimately, I'm going to distribute it on my own website and make it available for people to come and rent it. And eventually it'll be available to purchase.
Well, I will joyfully add it to my library of gender diverse things,
Cool.
books, etc. Once
Books,
it's
etc.
available in that way. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Cool.
I would
That'd be
love to have
great.
that in my collection. It sounds wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
You know, I so there's someone that I tried to get to be on a guest on the show who had declined for just like personal privacy reasons, which I totally wholeheartedly respect.
Hmm.
But he did share something with me that I thought was really incredible that maybe you would also enjoy.
Okay.
He mentioned that possibility dreams tend to come from people who are like us. So, like you were saying, you didn't realize you could be a filmmaker until you saw Spike Lee. And then you had this possibility dream of, wow, I could do that too.
Wow.
Like, I think the documenting of a trans journey, like you and I are both doing,
Yeah.
in our own ways, it
Hmm.
creates those possibility dreams for all of the trans and gender diverse people coming behind us.
That's the point of it
That
completely.
is the
One
point of it.
person's survival guide, like one
Yeah,
person's story can be another person's survival guide. And that's what I talk
exactly.
about in my article for, I'm writing a series of articles about Beautiful Boy for the Walker Arts Center in Minnesota. And my first two articles are about, they're about the loss of my friend that made me find myself, which is what really happened. Like I lost my beautiful friend and I found myself. And that's why I'm eternally grateful to have met them in the first place. And so that's kind of what it is. One person's story is another person's survival guide, you know? So I get that.
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Do you
I
think
love it
so?
all. I love it all. So I would we do have a sort of section of conversation about friendship and grief. So I
Yeah.
imagine we're going to hear more about your friend when we get to there.
Mhm.
The last question that I have on filmmaking
Mhm.
is what are some of your favorite films and or filmmakers? So it sounds like Spike Lee might be one of them, but who else?
Oh my God, I've been watching films since I was 5. That's a good 46 years. Okay, I'll start with that first film. The first film I ever watched that blew my mind. I was 5 years old, and I love the rock band The Who. I think they're great. And they had this great movie. It's a rock opera that's written by the guitarist Pete Townsend. It's called Tommy, and everyone should see Tommy. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And, like for the time that it came out, like they used green screen and stuff like that. But like everybody's in it, like Jack Nicholson and Margaret. Um, oh my God, everyone. Eric Clapton, Tina Turner is in it as the Acid Queen. I mean, it's beautiful. And I was deeply entranced by it because it was music and they were acting. I didn't understand that it was a musical, that it was an opera.
Mm.
And, because I was so young, but I was like, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And I've seen it periodically, and I haven't seen it on purpose for at least 25 years because
Mm-hmm.
I'm waiting for the right moment to watch it again,
Mm-hmm.
just to fall into it again. I do the same thing with Pulp Fiction. I watch Pulp Fiction every 5 to 10 years, just so I can fall back into it. That's another favorite. Um, to Sleep with Anger by Charles Burnett. Um, Watermelon Woman by Cheryl Genier, and also another movie by her called The Owls, Older, Wiser Lesbians. And just there's so many. There's Moulin Rouge by Laos Berman. I saw that in the theater and it was mesmerizing. And I know a musical now that you can go see at the theater is available now. There's just so many movies, and there's so many wonderful filmmakers, so many auteurs. Like anyone can take their phone and be a filmmaker, but to actually tell a story with the camera, that's why I call
Mm-hmm.
myself an auteur, is that I
Mm-hmm.
tell stories with the camera and script. that I usually write. I almost always write my own scripts. And so that's the difference between that, making films and telling stories with the language of cinema. And so, I mean, there's all types of, there's Potter. Sally Potter made this beautiful film based on a Virginia Woolf novel called Orlando, which is about non-binary and transgender expression. And it's amazing. Tilda Swinton and Billy Zane are in it, and it's magical. And I just invested in a 56 movie collection that's all LGBTQIA films. And there's like Born in Flames that's in there, Portrait of Jason, an English film that was I think one of the first films to talk about transitioning, and it's called I Want What I Want. And it's about a transgender woman. And there's also a B movie. I hate the fact they call him a B movie filmmaker, but Ed Wood Jr., which Tim Burton made a film called Ed Wood about Ed Wood Jr. and his relationship with Bela Lugosi, who played Dracula. And Ed Wood had this film because Ed Wood was transgender. He made a film called Glyn or Glinda, 1952, I believe. And I bought that film. And then I have Pandora's Box. I have Young Rebel Soul or Young Soul Rebel by Julian Isaac, and also Looking for Langston by Julian Isaac. And so there's just so much cinema that's been out there in the 20th century alone. The first gay film was a Western called Algie the Miner, and it was made in 1912. And there's no mistake who and what Algie is. That's how beautiful that film was. And it's like a little 9 or 10 minute film or something. And so yeah, there's just a lot of LGBTQIA cinema, and there's a lot of other kinds of cinema like foreign films, international films, and African American films and sci-fi. It's just like film is just, it's like this magical wonderland that you go and experience anywhere from 15 seconds to nearly 3 hours. And they used to make films that were 6 and 8 hours long back in the day.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you sit in the theater all day long. Pretty much like what you do at the Dollar Theater. Like when Purple Rain came out, I went to the Dollar Theater and I'd sit there all day and watch it come on like 3 or 4 times in a day. Or the Barry Gordon's The Last Dragon, and with Vanity and Timok. And she plays like, I think, a singer who needs a bodyguard. And he's like a martial artist who takes on the job. And it came out, I think, a year after Purple Rain did, and Prince and Vanity used to date back in the day. And The Last Dragon, oh, it's fantastic. It's like this campy, wonderful thing. And I used to go to the theater and stay all day and watch it. And all of us kids would be there. And some people would like do whatever in the theater and just mouth all the lines or say all the lines and stuff. And so, yeah, it was pretty fun.
That's so fun. Oh my gosh. I have attempted to capture that whole list, but the good news is it's recorded and we can go back and get it again later.
That sounds great.
Such a good list of films. So if you're watching this live and you want this list, check out the VOD on YouTube on Friday, or you'll see it in the podcast description when that comes out in about a month. Yeah, so I want to pivot now and talk about friendship and grief. This is sort of the last big pile of questions that I have for you today. Okay. So you've mentioned your friend. Atlas, how do you define friendship, and what significance does it have in human life?
Oh, friendship has an enormous significance to human life. We are hardwired to connect as human beings, which is why, like when I described the disco ball earlier, reflecting my light towards others so they can reflect their light towards me. Friendship is about safety. And that's what that reflection back and forth is. It's about safety. It's about listening, really reflectively listening, which means you wait until someone finishes what they have to say, and then you say what you have to say, but you don't wait waiting to say something. You wait as you listen. Friendship is about love. And, even if you're partnered with someone or family with someone, it's enhanced by friendship. And so friendship is the first thing. It should be anyway. And friendship is about respect. It's about being open and taking chances. And it's about saying I love you and not being afraid of the answer that could come back.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about being your own friend, your own best friend, being honest with yourself and listening to yourself and respecting yourself. So it's not just friendship you have with another human being, it's a friendship that's contained within you, with yourself, with your cat, your dog, your hamster, any kind of animal is your fish, or just your friends in nature, like, an elk, a lion, that friendship there, they're sentient beings too. Your plants, they're sentient beings too. That's why when you talk to your plants, it helps them grow better. And you clean their leaves, it helps them grow better.
Yeah. Gosh, oh my gosh, there's so many. My brain is trying to keep up with the joy that I'm feeling just listening to your thoughts here.
I'm glad you feel joy.
Yeah, it's I love like spirituality and philosophy and these type of things that are the like deep soul conversations.
Yeah.
I actually majored in comparative religion in
Oh,
undergrad because I wanted to understand people better. And I
right.
wanted to understand the plethora of paradigms that people look at life through. And so I
Mm.
didn't study one religion. I studied as many as I could get my hands on because I wanted to understand people more,
Wow, that's beautiful.
which is also very autistic of me. Like, I don't understand people. I'm going to study
No,
them some more.
I wish we all took that approach. That's the genius of your autism, is that you literally just taught us to take an interest in each other, whether you know each other or not. Find
Yeah.
different avenues to understand the human race better. That's beautiful, gender.
Yeah. Oh. Meow.
Beautiful.
So the next question is about grief. How do you define grief and what is the significance of it in human life?
Grief is significant. I'll start with that first. Grief is significant because if we didn't know grief, we would take the things that we love and care about, the things that bring us joy, we would take them for granted. And so grief is necessary. You have to lose in order to appreciate what you have. Period. And to make plans for the future of what you will not do so that you don't have to feel this type of grief again. So it's about calibrating yourself and how you will move forward in the future. Like with my friend, I made some very significant mistakes in a very short amount of time that caused our relationship to shatter. And I went ahead and delved deeper into my mental health to fix it and to shape it so that I was no longer surviving, but I was living. The survival skills that I had adapted for 49 years was no longer working and serving its purpose. And the purpose was to survive. And I no longer need to survive. I just need to live. I need to live my life on my own terms as authentically and honestly as I can. And so grief is necessary and significant so that you can live your best life as the best version of yourself that you can develop day by day. So it's absolutely significant. And also the thing about grief is that you will always have grief, but it's the space around the grief that gets bigger, and the grief stays the same. It's just the space around it gets bigger. And while you have this grief, the grief becomes a memory that will always remind you of something that was important to you. And you can reflect back on it periodically as often as you need to continue to calibrate your spirit and how you move forward in the future. And so the grief that I sustained by losing this dear friendship made me who I am today, where I can show up for a a YouTube streaming and Twitch streaming and podcast for your audience and for you and for myself as myself in my most authentic form. And so I wouldn't have been able to do this 2 years ago. But the loss of this beautiful friendship has allowed me to be who I really am.
Yeah.
So,
Um, so often grief of the loss of a best friend isn't talked about or framed the same way. Like the death of that relationship isn't framed in the same way as like the physical death of like a loved one or a life partner. Why do you think that is? Like why?
well, there are a lot of reasons why that is. And instead of focusing on that, let's focus on what a relationship, a friendship really is. Any
Mm-hmm.
relationship that you have with another sentient being, in and of itself, the relationship is sentient. So when the relationship is no longer there, the relationship has either died completely or has died down so much that it's just embers and cinders. And it's embers and cinders of something that was once sentient and beautiful
Mm-hmm.
and brilliant. It's just like a phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
And so some relationships I've lost and they've come back even 30 years later. And some relationships I don't want back. And I'm comfortable not ever relating to that person again or these people again.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that instead of focusing on why, it's it's more like how. And it's like the relationship in and of itself is sentient. And we have to respect the power of that of the life of a relationship by contributing to the relationship together. Whether it's you and I during this meeting right here, or my former best friend. You know, we contributed equally to this beautiful friendship until I wasn't contributing in a way that was healthy or beneficial to the friendship anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I am holding myself accountable for it every day, but I no longer feel crappy about it.
Mm-hmm.
I used to feel crappy about it when it really originally went down. But to continue feeling crappy about it today is me making myself feel something that doesn't actually feel good. And it deters my personal growth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I can no longer feel bad about it. I felt bad about it. I processed it. I've asked for forgiveness and I've moved on with my life, and I still very much love this person and I only wish the best for them, the best of everything.
Yeah. I love you talking about how relationships have their own energy and sentience. Like, there's
Mhm.
person, person, and then the thing that they create together.
Yeah.
Um, that's
Yeah.
so special. Like,
It is special. Yeah. Even
um,
the ones that fall off, those relationships that fall off, there
mhm,
was a moment where you thought it was special until you realized it wasn't, and then it dragged on until it died.
mhm, yeah. And so, like, my wife and I, we
Hmm.
have we have our day that we talk about house stuff like
Right.
maintenance, dishes, chores, whatever. And then on
Hmm.
a different other over here day, we have
Hmm.
date night because it's
Yes.
important to maintain our connection as well as have this other meeting over here where we talk about our physical space. So there's the
Yeah.
tending of the physical space and the tending of the emotional together space. And those are two separate activities.
Yeah. Yeah, they are. They're two separate activities that both deserve the respect and love that they need. Like
Mm-hmm.
to adore someone is to love and respect someone.
Mm-hmm.
And plenty of people say they love people, but I don't know if they ever question whether they respect people or not. Like to say
Mm-hmm.
you're in love with someone and then push up against their boundaries when they said they're not interested. Do you love them and respect them, or do you just have this ideology of what you think love is, which is pushing up unnecessarily against other people's boundaries?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's not love, and that's definitely not indicative of self-love, which you
Yeah.
need to have first before you can truly love and respect another person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm doing
Um,
throat lozenges because my throat's getting dry from COVID.
oh yeah. Well, I'm so grateful that you're here at all today. I'm sorry that you're sick. Um, I have 3 or 4 questions left. Let me read this one right quick.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like we talked about that one pretty well. So, is there anything else about friendship and grief or filmmaking or human being human that you wanted to say that we haven't covered yet before I ask my sort of 2 wrap up questions about gender euphoria?
Oh, I don't know. Just whatever it is, just go for it. There's this beautiful meme that says, it's already yours, dash the universe. It's already yours. Just go for it. Like, whatever it is, the more terrified you are, the more you should do it.
Mm,
Because there's a beautiful you that's waiting on the other side of that said, I knew you could do it all along. I was
yeah,
waiting for you to do it, and here you are, and here we are. That's your best friend. That best friend is you. Just do it. Just do
I love
it.
that. I love that so much. We have a question from the audience.
Sure.
Mirami is asking, would you like to tell us a little bit about what's next for you? Perhaps your next creative endeavor. It sounds like you're still in the middle of Beautiful Boy. Are there
Hmm.
other creative endeavors that you're working on at the same time?
There are some things I'm thinking about, but nothing concretely yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's
Beautiful
fair.
Boy is going to take up another 2.5 years of my life, and then there's a festival tour, and
Mm-hmm.
then distributing it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited for Beautiful Boy. Oh my gosh.
Oh, good. Thank you. Good.
And for those listening, it's spelled BOI for boy.
Mhm. Yeah, it's
Um,
beautifulboy.com.
yeah, yeah. Why did you pick that version of the word boy for those who don't haven't heard of that before?
Well, first of all, Boy was adapted by Black lesbians, I think in the 60s or 70s. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's where it comes from. And it's just for people that identify as Mask of Sinner. And so I am transmasculine by definition. Um, but to me, like, in all honesty, um, I called my friend Beautiful Boy one day, and it stuck. And then all of a sudden I realized I am a beautiful boy too.
Hmm.
And my film originally was a different title. And I thought, no, it needs to be Beautiful Boy.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to be Beautiful Boy. You need to, since it's about you, and you now recognize that you are also a beautiful boy, you need to put who you are right in this title of the film and in your website.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. Oh, I
Yeah.
love that so much. Um, can you share an experience with gender euphoria?
I'm experiencing it right now, honey.
I know the fabulous,
I'm
all the
experiencing it right
feathers,
now. Look at
all the
this disco
disco
ball.
ball.
I'm
It's
experiencing
such a
gender
good disco
euphoria.
ball. It's so
I
good.
have like a mesh shirt on, and so I
Mm-hmm.
had, oops, gonna fall down. I had top surgery, and so this is what I look like now. So it's great. I bought
Yeah,
this at like a gay sex store across the street. I'm so lucky.
perfect.
And I cut the sleeves off this morning because they were
Amazing.
too long. And I was like, this actually works.
I love
Yeah,
it.
so yeah, I'm experiencing it right now. Gender euphoria, I mean, it's whatever you define it as.
Yeah. I had some recently when I was gardening with my shirt off. That was
Oh,
fun. I
nice.
was like, planting strawberries or something and just like no shirt, just dirt and skin. It was great. And then when my
Perfect.
back hurt and I was done, I got to stop. What a delight.
Oh my gosh. Nice. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That must
It's
have
like,
felt so
okay,
good.
that's enough strawberries. I'm gonna go sit down.
Yeah,
Disabled,
age.
queer, and trans gardening. There it is.
Yes.
Alice, it's been such a pleasure having you here. I have one more question for you. What would
Sure.
you like to make sure folks know about your perspective on gender and non binary or trans issues?
What can you ask that question one more time?
Yeah. If there was like a a soundbite or like you had a soapbox, you got your 30-second elevator pitch. What's the one thing you want to make sure people know about your perspective about gender and gender identity?
That there's nothing to fear.
Yeah.
The
Heck
reason
yeah.
why we are trans is because our ancestors were trans. The reason why we are who we are today is because it comes all the way from our lineage, from the very first person in our lineage. And there's nothing to fear. I'm just a human being, just like you.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not different. We're unique to each other. That's it.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I offer you hugs if you wish to receive virtual hugs.
Virtual hugs.
Here they
Yes.
are.
Virtual hugs.
This is such a wonderful conversation. As a reminder to our audience, you all can check out Atlas's website, beautifulboi.com, beautifulboy.com.
Thank
For
you.
information about the film. Is there a mailing list people can sign up for on your website?
Yes, they can subscribe. If they also choose to purchase, like to rent a film, they can subscribe that way as well. But on the main page, there's a subscription on the bottom of that, and so
I
you
love
can
it.
access it through your phone,
Can
desktop,
we
and there's an app.
pre-order? Can we pre-order your film through the website?
Pre-order Beautiful Boy.
Yeah.
Damn, I hadn't even thought about that. Was that your brilliant idea?
You should do it. You should have pre-orders for your film. It's like Kickstarting, but you get to keep all the money.
I'm totally gonna do that. Because that's the thing now. People like do the pre-orders. Like Janelle Monáe, I think her
pre-order
book is doing
a
pre-orders.
digital copy of Beautiful Boy. I would 100% do that.
I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that. I'm having that done this week. Yes.
I love it. Okay. So when Atlas gets that done, I will invite them to email me about it, and we'll put the info in the show notes so you all can see it on YouTube and the podcast later.
Oh, this is brilliant. You're brilliant. You're brilliant. This is perfect. Yes. Woo!
Yep.
Happy Pride.
So good. Oh my gosh. What a beautiful website also. So many cool things. I'm going to make sure I sign up for your emails once we finish the show
That was
today.
the first time I used Wix, and I'm not a website builder, and so I stumbled around for about a week and figured it out. And even the Wix employees who I kept messaging over and over, they were like, "Your website's amazing," you know.
It's
not
so
too bad.
You did great. I love it.
Thank you.
It's so wonderful. So for our guests to note, next week we're going to be having Kai and Jackal from Stealth, a Transmasculine podcast. And we're going to be discussing trans elders and stealth transmasculine folks. So their show, I've mentioned it on this show a few times. Their show is all about interviewing folks who came out as masculine of center before the year 2000 and what it has been like for those people being trans. Because that generation of trans masculine people is severely under documented. So they're doing it. They're documenting it, which is so exciting. And it's like,
that's why it
took me like 3 months to schedule them because they're very busy boys. But we did it. So I'm excited that that's going to be our guests for next week. So come back next week. It will be a later stream. Let me look at my calendar. Later than usual because they have work. So we're going to go live at 6 p.m. instead of 2:30, just so everybody knows. Genderful would like to thank our guests for being on the podcast. Please feel free to join us live on Twitch on Mondays, check out the replays on YouTube on Fridays, and keep an eye on your favorite podcasting platforms for edited audio-only version. As Nefertiti likes to say, trans rights are human rights. That's right.
That's right. That's right, baby.